Godrej Properties is the next one. Remember, the company's net profit and revenue surged multifold to drive the earnings higher. Additionally, the company achieved about 51% of the annual guidance for booking value, has acquired land for residential project in Ahmedabad as well. And in part, while Q2 numbers were not necessarily the strongest, let's hear it from the management about what they feel about the quarters ahead.
As you would be, because you track real estate for a while, usually real estate is a very lumpy business. Quarter 4 historically for us always has been extremely brilliant. But over the years, the endeavor is to try and spread out the launch calendar as much evenly as we can. And I think this year what we managed to do is try and get as many launches in Q1. Q2, frankly, if you see from an industry perspective, whatever numbers I think have come till now, we're clearly leading the market. And in fact, if you see our H1 performance is 13,800 plus crores, which is used to be a full year sale just 2 years back. So I mean, quite delighted on the overall performance from a sales perspective. In fact, we've gone like 90% on booking value growth and about 89% of the volume growth in H1. So yeah, in fact, last year's Q2 performance also was marginally lower than this year's Q2 performance. So yeah, I mean, from a sales perspective, very, very happy. On the other parts of the metrics, I think, as you rightly mentioned, collections have been a huge area of focus for us, and very delighted because we got a lot of OCs this quarter, which is delivery of projects. That is the time when your collections tend to jump up quite a bit. So we saw some kind of 7,000 crores of H1 performance, which is something like a 62% year-on-year performance. But on the net operating cash flow level, it's even much more stronger. It's about 2,800 plus crores, which is our best ever H1 performance. So very delighted with the very strong results.
And you reckon that, I'm guessing at least automakers have been saying that the start of the end of Pitru Paksh resulted in a lot of bookings, etc. and stuff like that. You reckon Q3 and Q4 could actually be stronger than anticipated? Are you, in fact, would you be tempted to raise the annual numbers because you already achieved half of what you had guided for?
I think, let me go one by one. I think, as you rightly mentioned, Pitru Paksh has a, Shraddh period, as we call it, has an impact on typical cycle. In fact, last year what happened was, it was just around early part of October, which means that doesn't really impact Q3 results. But this year, it was in the last say 2 weeks of September. But, for us, if you are really ask me, I mean, industry-wise, it has been an impact, but our has been quite strong from whatever launches we were planning to get into the market in this quarter. The second part of your question is how Q3 and Q4 looks like. I think very, very exciting because we have a series of big bang launches planned in most markets which we operate, including both Q3 and Q4. And yes, you're right. We've kind of met, historically our H1 as we're doing some sort of an analytics internally. We realized that about 37% is what our H1 is usually to H2. And a best ever H1 has been typically 40%. This time it's been like 50%, but to guidance. So yeah, I mean, we have a very high upside risk, but we want to maintain the same guidance.
Hi Gaurav, you've mentioned that in Q3 and Q4 you're expecting a lot of big launches. Now considering that, is this the reason that the 6,000 crore fundraise is on cards? Explain to us how do you plan to utilize these funds for?
Sure, Rishi. I think the capital raise that we are looking has got nothing to do with our performance on the sales side. In fact, we have enough and more to sustain a reasonable growth. But I think what we're going through is explosive growth. If you see, Godrej Properties grew about 56% between FY23 and 24, and 22 and 23, and FY23 and 24 grew by 84%. In H1, we've grown by like 90%. This is, by any standards, one of the most explosive growths we've seen. And to fuel and maintain the pipeline, because we are seeing launches and performance far higher than what we had both underwritten and expected. So to maintain, and the market opportunity is, we want to look at this purely as a growth capital and take the trajectory to its continued great orbit that we managed to do that. But frankly, if you ask me, for the next 12 to 18 months, we have enough and more to deliver on great growth.
And considering that, you've mentioned that this is for the growth opportunities that you're seeing these fundraisers, what is the kind of, I want to understand on the pricing trend. Now, with the new launches, there has been a high velocity of new launches that we've seen across real estate sector. But given that the high pricing demand that we are, overall growth that we are looking at, do you expect the pricing levels to stabilize from here onwards? And how would that lead to an impact on the launches if we see?
I think if you see generally, pricing has been a sort of a secular trend across the last, say, 24 odd months across India. But the degree of price appreciation has been varied, right? I mean, north markets like NCR and Gurgaon in particular has seen a sharper price increase, followed by Bangalore, then by Noida. And Mumbai very recently has started seeing a reasonable jump in pricing. And relative to that, Pune is yet to even take off from relative pricing point of view. So I think different markets are a different cycle. So I would say, that next 12 months to 24 months, there should be good opportunities of pricing growth in specific markets. And I also feel the markets will change. Like Gurgaon will move from periphery markets to Golf Course Road, which is where our dominant new exciting set of projects will come. So from what we've underwritten to launch, I'm reasonably confident we'll deliver better pricing growth. But how much it is, to what many quarters it will continue, very difficult to frankly crystal gaze. But in the very near term, I think there is some reasonable probability that in many markets we could see reasonable price growth. But yes, different micro markets are different. So like I was mentioning, Gurgaon, I think Golf Course Road is going to see the massive action from all of these KPIs. But if different market is going to see different pricing trends.
All right, that's Godrej Properties, of course, and the stock solid 3% higher on what I thought was a decent quarter, of course.